So I trust that you guys have been taking notes, writing down questions. Anyone want to go first? All right, yes. Can you just identify yourself too?
Hi, yes, I'm Malavika. I'm from the publishing arm of the Biochemical Society based out of London in the UK. If I may, I have two questions.
We'll allow it.
Okay.
I'll all right.
One is a general question to the panel. If you could give us some insight on, despite targeting and intelligent data, can you tell us a little bit about email or campaign fatigue?
Campaign fatigue. Yes. Does this work? Oh, it does. So the campaign that I mentioned, in which we used the scratch off for our audience in teasing out this new journal, was really super successful for the authors and the readers, not so much for the librarians. And the reason I think was because we hit the authors and the researchers 4 or 5 times with the different clues. And we hit the librarians 4 or 5 times with the different clues. And I think there's different audiences for different, they have a different, like a standard of fatigue, threshold, there we go, for fatigue. And we saw the librarians had a very high, or had a very low threshold, rather.
Yeah.
I can say a few things that we've learned, which kind of goes against all the email best practices that we've been told over the years. We actually see really nice open rates on Saturdays of our emails that are, interdisciplinary, and we also are going to be doing a test. This might be crazy, and I will take it back if it's a complete disaster. I'll blame it on someone else. But we're actually going to do a test on Sunday because we do see that there is so much fatigue during the week of people, and I am completely overwhelmed as well with inbox stuff. That potentially when you're sitting around having a cup of coffee on a Sunday morning, maybe you'll read something from us. We'll see. Like I said, it could go up in flames, and it will be the stuff of what everyone says. Do you remember last year at SSP, the dumb girl who mentioned a Sunday email? We'll see, but I mean, there's a reason why the newspaper is really big on Sundays, so it could translate, but we won't know. And I think that's one of the beauties of testing and sort of experimenting with things like emails, is that you do get that data immediately. You are reinforced quite quickly as far as if it's a good idea or not. So we'll see.
Okay, was that it? That got your both questions, or you have a second one?
The second one was for Lauren, really, because you mentioned about checking with librarians, and I just wanted to clarify, what does that actually look like? If you've got the Thomson Reuters list, and you want to send this campaign out to these many authors, all from different institutions.
Yeah, it's a good point. And when I talked about checking with librarians, it would be more in micro situations where, say, you had a specific institution that you're trying to sell a subscription and you want to generate a kind of a need cause based on different faculty and researchers wanting that resource. But before we'd go out to those different faculty and researchers, we'd check in with the librarian and say, is this kosher to do? But yes, it wouldn't really be feasible in a massive email campaign, but good point.
Okay. Next question? Yes. Hey, Greg.
I actually had 2 questions.
Yeah.
Oh,
Wait a minute. Wait a minute.
I'm Greg Moore from Rockefeller University Press. I was just wondering, once you've identified, you've taken great pains to identify the personal, the readers, the reviewers, and so forth, and you've mapped it to the institution. How do you keep track of that going down? So do you have a My ACS or a My Bio One? How do you get that sense of what the reader's doing subsequently? They come to your website after a campaign. It's not something we've ever done at Rockefeller. Have a my journal or my overall organizational profile.
Well, I'll say that we both have the profiles, which once they land on, hopefully they'll register for a free profile and then be able to fill out some of that data that then we can have in-house. But you bring up another point in terms of email campaigns. Another thing I think that can be really helpful is having as part of the campaign a special landing page that then you can track with analytics so that you know not just the open rates of the email, but also you can then judge how many people actually making it to the specific landing page on the site, and then where they're even going from there. So are they going to the browse list? Are they creating a profile? What are they doing? So again, it's a great point in terms of it's not just about getting them to open that email, it's collecting that data of once they get to the site.
Yeah, right.
I would add that we've also done some experiments with offering free content in order to then collect data. So it's you build your product, you have a free option so that you can collect some user data before you roll out anything that's sort of kind of common nowadays, not just in publishing, but anywhere, and free memberships before you sign up, or Amazon gives you a month of free before your Prime, or whatever it happens to be. But I think you're absolutely right. You want to track as much as you can when you're initially kind of meeting that user, and then encourage them in the email campaign to register and make sure you list the benefits of registration and make it something that someone's going to care about, and not just like, hey, if you register, we'll email you more. Nobody cares about that.
Yes, Carol.
Hi, Carol. I have a question for Lauren. You talked about having some personality and being yourself, and I had some positive and some negative experiences with that in the past. And I wonder if you could just comment on the global cultural issues that might, the slang that Americans might use,
Oh, yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it is another really good point, and that goes to the whole being understanding of cultural differences isn't just in terms of dealing with researchers, it is in things like collateral, or in these approaches. We say, be different and be yourselves in terms of having it be perhaps a little more colloquial and not having it seem like just another sales attempt that you've gotten 1,000 times. But that is also a very kind of Western perspective, that same approach might work in North America, but it might not work in Asia, where a certain level of formality is necessary. So yes, that is definitely a place where you need to do your research and rely on your local members of your sales team to say this is what works. And so that's a point that we really try to do, is make sure that the marketing team is coordinating with our boots on the ground, and testing different campaigns by them first and saying, how is this going to be received, or how can this be strengthened?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We've all learned the hard way on that one.
Yes.
Kevin Horwitz with the New England Journal of Medicine. Curious how much, for the panel, how much kind of long-term gamification you use in kind of the marketing, your email marketing. The scratch office seems to be kind of a short-term, but what do you do in terms of gamification to kind of increase customer engagement?
Gamification's really cool. I'm always trying to get people to do things that are outside of the box. Like I said, you're like, the scratch off is a one-off and it's quick, and but it got a lot of attention. And because of that, we've grabbed onto that big list. I mean, we generated over 11,000 new leads from the scratch off campaign. So, I mean, it was very successful. Now that we have these leads, we're marketing to them very strategically, in terms of the products that we want them to sign up for, et cetera. But I'm always looking for something new, and gamification, we've been talking about doing different applications using gamification on our site and other ways. I don't know about the longevity of any of these things. There's always something new. But I think if you can just spark their interest with something that they're not used to seeing, then you're already ahead of the game.
I don't know if it's considered gamification, but I think earlier there was a discussion, and one of the speakers from the Genetic Society of America was talking about, something kind of simple like a photo contest. And we did a campaign where we actually put together a really beautiful calendar for customers and users, and we handed it out in the booth at the exhibits we were attending, and it was all photos that had been submitted in a photo contest. We didn't call it a contest because there was no prize. We're nonprofit, but you get to be in a calendar. That was the award-winning prize. But that was really fun too. So it's I think just different ways of experimenting with ideas like that is really unusual. It doesn't whether you want to call it a game or just a new twist. I think and sometimes the new twists are old twists too.
The old is new again.
It is, and we all come back around.
Anything on this side? You guys have been very quiet. These guys are. Yeah. What about you? You got a question?
I have a question. Oh, Doug Lafreniere has a question.
Oh, Doug.
This is for Lauren, I think. I did not know that Thomson Reuters had approval from the authors for you to send emails.
They have a special database for that.
Yeah,
It's a special product.
It is. It's a special product that they cultivate, which is why it's so costly, because they've gone out to all these different researchers, segmented the data, and that they have the explicit permission to be contacted for services or products that Thomson Reuters thinks will be of interest to them. So
They're not legally obligated to do that. Anybody can compile a list.
Right.
At least once. So, but anyway, the real question, this is news to me, but the real question is, do they tell you what percentage of people that they survey give them that permission?
Yes.
is that true?
How
Yeah.
many people are you missing in these email campaigns because they haven't given permission?
Yeah, I mean, a good percentage, I think. And I don't have the exact statistics, but
More than 50%.
I would say half is probably fair. So it's called the Author Connect database, ACD, or they have all these great acronyms. And so you'll see there's a certain number of authors in the Web of Science who are, that's legit, they're in there for their article, and then you do a count and they send you what's in the Author Connect database, and it definitely shrinks that number. And that list is cleaned every 6 months, and it's vetted, and they don't just send, junk type promotions. I mean, you have to be someone that Thomson will do business with as well. So to us, it's been a win-win because we've been able to, when we launch new journals in different disciplines, we don't have a user base to go to, so it's been really useful for us. And I think for the author who's in there, they appreciate getting, or they would unsubscribe from that list.
yeah, and I'm certainly not in the business of shilling for Thomson, but I will say that, when we tried to do things with our own data, and we have pretty decent data, it was no comparison with the conversion rates that we were getting from the Thomson list. That in general, these were better leads and more click-throughs, more opens, more, getting that long-term user. So in my opinion, it is valuable.
Okay, what time is it?
I have a question. Oh, we have 9 minutes. I have a question. As you were talking earlier about creating these personas and still having folks sign up for kind of, personal interaction with you and discussions around, let's make some benefits that are, really of value to folks. What are you seeing benefits that folks find valuable that they do want to, that will encourage them to sign up and create kind of a personal user experience with you?
I mean, it goes back to the old marketing draw of you have to solve their problems for them, right? I mean, what are their issues? What are they facing? And how are you solving them? It's very personal. It's like me, across the board.
None of us are like that.
No.
Yeah.
I think for us, we provide, if someone creates a profile on our site, we allow them to save specific searches. They can go back and have these giant, really advanced search strings that they can go back and rerun when new content comes up. We allow them to, download citations. We allow them to, recommend articles, all of that. And then they will get more customized recommendations as well as a result, because then once they are registered for on our site, we can start to do some of the more sophisticated tracking and analysis on who they are, what they're reading, follow them. If they come in and they're anonymous and they grab a PDF and they leave, we can't really offer some of that service to them. But I think some of the advanced searching and saving, and it's like there's citation alerts, there's you can set up an alert if there's a new article that comes on that's got keywords that match. So I think it is for someone who is a dogged researcher who's like, I need to know every single time this phrase comes up anywhere, and it's a little bit more or a little bit less clunky than a Google alert, which can be ridiculous, obviously. We've all tried those and then gotten completely inundated. So that's one of the benefits, but of course, new tools are coming out all the time, so it's tough. There could be someone who's already got some app for that, but doesn't matter anymore for us.
And I would say too, sometimes it's not just about the bells and whistles. I know some of the more effective campaigns that we've done have been specifically targeted at authors, and not to ever underestimate author ego, or I should say author pride, specifically being in an aggregation, which as I mentioned, content would be available not just on Bio 1, but perhaps in other places. You know, sometimes it's just letting them know, hey, did you know that your article was also available through this? And you know, 90% of the time, they're so excited because it's yet another platform for their research to go forward. Exactly, more metrics, perhaps different tools and features that are available on other sites. And so, you know, playing to that ego or sense of pride, I think can be really effective.
It's Lori.
Lori Carlin, I'm just wondering if any of you have looked at pure open access titles and marketing there, and if there's any special tactics or techniques that you feel work better in that environment, and have you used ambassadors or influencers to help there as well?
Yeah, so there are special titles, you know, our open access titles at ACS. We treat them not too differently, but more specially, because we realize that there's sort of like a greater good that we're serving and fulfilling here. So I think maybe the tone of our marketing is a little bit different with those journals than the tone of the marketing that we do for other journals. I wouldn't say that we do anything totally different, but again, I would say the tone is important.
I can't think of anything special we've done. I think we treat all of our children equally. So.
So we don't have open access journals, but we are definitely, I mean, this conundrum for annual reviews is that all of our articles are written by invitation only, so it's author pay charges are not necessarily the most reasonable way going forward, because it's like saying, hey, here's an invite to this great party. Oh, and by the way, it's going to cost you. Yeah, you're gonna have to pay. Cough it up. Exactly. So it's a little. I mean, there's definitely some discussions, some very strategic business discussions going on about that now, because our mission is to disseminate this literature as much as possible. A mission that really stands up to OA, but I think for us, we've tried to create some article collections that we make open, that we don't ever go back behind access control. We've done, like, I don't think that we'll put that certain, social conflict and topical campaigns. We did one on gun violence, for example, and the problem there and some of the social aspects and how to solve from a public health perspective. Those articles are open right now because they should be, you know what I mean? And so for the greater good, for the wider audience, whatever. And I think that we look at things from a collection standpoint like that, promotional, and we also do a lot in social, and we keep those articles open if they're promoted.
Mm-hmm. Okay, yes.
Carol Ashwani, ACS. My question is, how big is your campaign? Like how many emails you send, and whether or not you have observed any sort of downside in terms of size and reaction from various email post offices and spam being tagged as spam and things of that nature. Some of those experiences.
We don't have a one-size-fits-all. I mean, every campaign is going to be unique based on the audience and who it's for and what the offer is and all that. We are very careful about how we set those campaigns up. You know, you don't put free articles in your subject line because that word is going to obviously up your spam potential. But there's a way to do it, though. Collection of articles available now, and then it's the first. There's ways you can kind of think about that and be a little bit more careful, but we don't necessarily have any steadfast rules that we follow as far as like it has to be this size. There's a minimum. There's a maximum. It really just kind of depends on what we're doing. It's not very helpful.
You have not had problems of that nature
I think.
Being tagged as
No, thankfully. We were very, very careful. Much to the chagrin of some of the editors of our journals who don't necessarily understand there's things called spam laws and like, why can't you just email these people? Here's my spreadsheet. I've got all these people. Why aren't you doing anything about it? It's like, that's illegal. I can't do that. But so yes, we're very careful, and unfortunately it's gotten me in some, a bit of trouble in the past about being too careful. Yes, exactly.
Yeah, I would concur. I would say that, we've had campaigns that go on the very small end from, a couple hundred people all the way to 10,000. And I think our approach is, whether it's that couple hundred or 10,000, to have, a similar approach throughout, to try to pretend like you are, or not even pretend, you are not talking to the group, you're talking to that single person that's opening the email. And that's just going to allow you to be as specific and targeted as possible. And again, create that kind of personal dynamic.
You can talk to me at home, Cal.
Okay, and I think email marketing is a great way to kind of reach into a new geographical region that maybe you just have no sales, nobody knows you at all. And we have done some of that for publishers at PCG. So it's a good way to kind of just increase your visibility and kind of build an audience for your content in an area where you're just pretty much unknown. Heaven forbid there be one of those, but there might be. Yeah.
As much as everyone says they hate email, they use it.
Yeah.
It's like a total, you have to deal with it.
2 minutes. 2 minutes, last question. Carol.
So I have another question. It has to do with the creep factor. The question is whether anyone in your organizations is very against collecting marketing data, because especially I think in scholarly societies or nonprofit publishers and things like that, people have a feel that, oh, we can't have a marketing system that's collecting data on people. That's not who we are. That's not. I don't know. I've heard that. I actually had some pushback from a colleague once about collecting data from people who wanted to download our things on SlideShare. No, that's not who we are. We don't do that. So I'm just wondering if that kind of culture has been an issue for any of you.
I thought you were going to ask me if anyone in my organization was creepy. No, and like I was saying, I think the opposite is true. We sort of get a little pressure that we're not doing more in the sort of gray area there about what we know about users and how we interact with that data. So I've not been told to pull back on anything personally.
Yeah, I would agree.
Yeah, I mean, everybody at ACS is in favor of gathering as much data as we can, but I think you have to be very cognizant as a marketing professional and as somebody in publishing that you're not being creepy. So that's what I've been insisting upon as we get this new data and as we start this new tracking. Let's not be creepy. Let's use this to our advantage, but not freak people out. So.
I would also say that I can't speak for you ladies, but we don't sell our user data. We don't rent it, we don't sell it. So therefore, and we will stand by that until, well, they're going to have to tell me, it's different, whatever, sometime. But at that point, we don't, use that data any other way but to be more relevant, proactive with our own marketing of that content, which we feel is valuable. So it's
But again, it goes back to trust. I mean, the second that you sold that list, then you forgo all the trust you'd built with those users. So that's really critical.
So a great tweet. Don't be creepy.
Don't
there
be
you go. Anyway, thanks for coming, and thank you to all the speakers.